Gemini Man. Will Smith goes head to head with his digitally conjured younger self.
I saw this on the side of a bus.
Yeah.
And wondered.
And, you know, in a way, that may have been the best way to see it. So the film is by Ang Lee, of course, you know, who made Life of Pi, but who has increasingly become very, very fixated with pushing the boundaries of technology. I have to say, I feel at the expense of storytelling. You know, you think of Wedding Banquet or Brokeback Mountain. Anyway, so the story is Will Smith is a retiring assassin who finds himself pursued by a youthful killer who seems to know his every move. It's almost as if he's looking in a mirror, albeit a mirror that makes him look a little bit weirdly artificial. Here's a clip.
Stop right there! Who are you? I don't want to shoot you!
Fine. Don't shoot me. Mind if I shoot you?
Did they show you a picture of me?
Yeah, you look old.
Kid, you take one step closer. You're gonna leave me no choice.
Bang.
Honking soundtrack.
And indeed, but yeah, that's not quite full Brahms, but it's in the way. So the project, the Gemini Man project, dates back to 1997 when Darren Lemke sold the concept of the film to Sony. And since then, there was a test reel that was called The Human Face. And eventually the project was sort of shelved because they decided that technology wasn't there yet. And then over the years, it's been attached to everybody and their husbands. So Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, Jon Voight, Nick Cage, Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, slicing. Everyone has sort of their names in there. Directors variously spoken of: Tony Scott, Curtis Hanson, Joe Carnahan. Script has been rewritten. Billy Ray, Dave Benioff, Brian Helgeland, you know. So 2016, the project comes to Skydance and now comes to the screen with a script credited to Benioff, Ray and Lemke and directed by Ang Lee, who used that high frame 3D, that's very high frame rate 3D on Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. And I don't know whether you remember, but I said when I reviewed that film, in some places you could see it in ordinary presentation. We saw it presented in the high frame rate. And it was one of those really weird things in which what happens is when you get to a certain high frame rate, so everything just starts to look like weird behind the scenes footage. You remember 48 frames per second for the Hobbit stuff, in which it just, yeah, fine. So super high frame rate. I think I'm correct in saying 60 frames, 120 because it's left eye, right eye. I think I'm right. The interesting thing is I'm getting to the point that I don't care because the high frame rate thing for me is a really weirdly non-cinematic experience. A high frame rate was basically pioneered because I mean, Doug Trumbull, who's been doing some really interesting work with it in terms of, you know, things like Ufotog, and I think actually Doug Trumbull was talking about using high frame rate back in the days of, you know, when he was working with Natalie Wood years and years and years ago. But for me, what a high frame rate thing does is, okay, it's meant to solve a problem of transverse skitter when you have 3D, and if a camera moves left to right, the 3D will skitter slightly at normal frame rate. 48 frames it doesn't. 120 just makes everything super real. So it looks like it's kind of happening in front of you. But also it's edited and it's cut out like so. So it's a weird thing about something cinematic is happening, but it doesn't look cinematic. What it looks like is it's happening in front of you, but it's cinematically organized, and your brain goes, okay, in that case, it looks like behind the scenes footage. Sorry, that's how it looks. The weird thing is that there are some sort of well-staged crashy bangy fights. There are some, you know, little action sequences which are, you know, well done. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead injecting a much-needed human note as the kind of ass-kicking sidekick who's tough and strong and strange and, you know, interesting. But the problem with it was, particularly in the version in which I saw it, all you could concentrate on was the bizarre format, which just made you think, okay, I'm looking at the bizarre de-aging process, which of course is done. So they said we had to create a full digital human being based on Will at 23 years old. It was nerve-wracking until we saw some tests, and then we knew he could do it. And so there are ideas in there that are sort of sub-Blade Runner-y ideas about souls and bodies, but I'm afraid that watching it was a totally just distracting experience, because it's like Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. He was so busy wondering whether you could, you never stopped to think if you should.